How's it? We are live for Wednesday, October the 19th. Hope you guys are doing well. Uh, we are live now. Let me put this on Twitter. We are live now for our weekly live show. We will discuss any NFL, college football games, and games for the week that you would like on this recorded podcast. So go ahead and post which games you guys would like to talk about, and we'll talk about all those games. Hey, Kevin, good to see you, man. We'll talk about whatever games that you guys want to talk about. And note that our selections might change based on Thursday when the football card comes out. So it's not finalized, but I'll tell you where my head is at and what our team's head is at coming into this game as well. But hope you guys are doing well. Hey, Kevin, good to see you, man. Matthew, good to see you. Hey, Andrew, I see. What do you think about Michigan can win the national title? Just curious on your take. Well, they certainly have the experience now, right? And go ahead and start posting the games that you guys want to talk about as well for this weekend. Um, but they certainly have the experience, and I think they took a big hump last year. And it looks like Harbaugh is not going to go anywhere for a long time. It took some time for this team to kind of get used to Harbaugh and Harbaugh to fully commit to college football. There's a lot going on there, but it worked, right? I mean, now this team is sitting pretty good. Um, it's a team that's comfortable with who they are. They're now 4-0 in conference play. They actually look better than Ohio State right now. Um, so, and I think it's given the fact that Harbaugh coached in the NFL, that plays a lot. And I think Harbaugh's comfortable, and I think he's happy right now where he is at. I don't think he's trying to bounce from team to team like Saban did, and then Saban found happiness in Alabama. Harbaugh's 58 as well. Michigan sits at a cool. They're fourth in some rankings, right, and third in others. I think they're much better than Tennessee, to be honest with you. And I think it'll come down to Michigan, Ohio State, and we'll see what happens. But I think Ohio State's on a revenge tour, if you will. I think Michigan has their best chance next year, probably. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think that's where it stands. I think Michigan will have its best chance probably next year. But I think they're the real deal. I think Michigan is certainly the real deal going forward. How's it, Matthew? Good to see you, Matt. You want to talk about the Cardinals and the Saints? Sure. So the Cardinals and the Saints here. Let's see. So you have the Cardinals as a 2.5 point chalk. Total opened up at 46, went down to 43.5. 2-4 team and 2-4 teams here. So what's interesting about this game is you have a New Orleans team that just lost to Cincinnati 26-30, but they were in that game throughout. That's a game that they never should have lost. They were up 20-14. They were up 23-21 going into the fourth quarter, and then they fell short. They were up the whole way. In fact, we had them for the cover in that game, and then they missed the cover, and they rushed for 228 yards. They held Cincinnati 75 yards. It's a game that they frankly never should have lost. They outpossessed them by 5 minutes as well. So, and you have Burrow who threw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, and the Saints still almost won that game. Andy Dalton threw for 160 and 1 touchdown. And I think what happens here, and Arizona's really struggling. I mean, they're only favored by 2.5 points, mind you. But New Orleans looked great against Seattle. And they look great against Minnesota, only lost by 3 points. So they've looked really good the last 3 weeks. Arizona looked horrible against Seattle, and I think the trade for Anderson will help them somewhat, but they were favored by 2.5 points on the road. They lost to Philadelphia by just 3 points, but they do come off back-to-back losses, and that's going to be motivating for them to do well. They also come off 9 points and 17 points the last 2 games, and you have a New Orleans team that can certainly score, scoring 26 and 39 points. Big scores going over the last 3 times. They gave up 28 to Minnesota, 32 to Seattle, 30 to Cincinnati. I can't go against Arizona coming on back-to-back losses. Arizona's defense has been quite stout, holding opponents to 16 points at Carolina, 20 to Philadelphia, 19 to Seattle. The lean here is either has to be on New Orleans plus the 2.5, or it has to be on the over It's interesting. The total went way down to 43.5, which kind of makes me queasy too. So I think the only way for me to go here is the Saints, just because I'll take the points here. I think the Saints are actually the team that's playing better right now. Even though Arizona comes off back-to-back losses, I like the Saints plus the 2.5 in this game. Moving on here. Hey, Andrew, good to see you. Oregon, UCLA, please. Sure. So this Oregon game, you have Oregon favored by 6.5 here, 6-0 team. It's interesting because UCLA is ranked 10th and Oregon's ranked 8th, but of course Oregon has the one loss. But who has UCLA played? They played Utah. They covered. Won by 10. They were a 3.5-point dog. They played Washington, won by 8 as a 3-point dog. They have won outright both times. Give them credit. They were both dogs going in. They beat South Alabama, Alcorn State, Bowling Green, and Colorado on the road. Oregon, of course, has had the much tougher schedule. They destroyed Stanford and Arizona, Washington State, and BYU and Eastern Washington. They've certainly picked it up since their opening loss to Georgia. And I think if they played them again, they don't lose 3-49 to Georgia. Having said that, Oregon, lost. Oregon, beat this team 34-31 last year, and Oregon's even better this year. So the question begs, can Oregon, people are taking the points here with UCLA. And notice the total opened up at 71.5, and it's remained steady. I actually think, but I don't know, it's tricky, right? When two good teams face each other, games have a tendency to go under when two good teams face each other. But this is the highest total, pretty much it's the highest total that UCLA has seen, certainly, and Oregon. I believe has the better defense, holding Arizona to 22 and Stanford to 27. I think this is a game that Oregon will get up for. I think Oregon is better in the skill positions, and I think it's a great public fade as well. I like Oregon here. I also like the over, but I think I like the Oregon a little bit more on the side. It's a great public fade. Lean on Oregon there. Moving on here. Let's see, what else do we have here? Sports Guru, how are you? Good to see you. Hey, Lewis, Cody, talk about the Giants game. Sure. So the Giants game, by the way, be sure to give this video a like if you enjoy the content here. So the Giants are a 3-point dog at Jacksonville, and the Giants are 5-1, and the Jacksonville is 2-4, and yet Jacksonville is favored by 3. So you might ask yourself why. Well, it's because the Jags really need to win this game, and you have a Giants team that at the end of the day, beat Baltimore 24-20. They beat Green Bay, but Green Bay stinks. Baltimore's been questionable. Chicago stinks. They lost to Dallas 16-23, and they beat Carolina. It was terrible. So what has this team really? And of course, they did beat Tennessee on the road, but Tennessee's been suspect all year. Jacksonville lost to Indianapolis 27-34, and that's a game that they could have won. Jacksonville was up 21-13, and then Indianapolis dropped 15 on them in the fourth quarter. Jacksonville outplayed them, frankly. They rushed for 240 yards. They had the ball 3 minutes longer. They held Indianapolis just 45 yards rushing. So you tell me how the Giants are going to do well, because when the Giants beat the Ravens, the Giants rushed for 83 yards and passed for 155. And to be quite honest with you, and Daniel Jones only passed for 173. Jacksonville's defense isn't bad. They lost 6-13 to Houston. They lost 21-29 to Philadelphia. They beat the Chargers. They beat Indianapolis. And that was a revenge game for Indianapolis, and they nearly lost that game. I like Jacksonville. I know it sounds crazy, but I'm not fully sold on the Giants. I am fully sold on the Jets, by the way. But I like Jacksonville. I think they're favored for a reason. I think they're probably the better offense. Might even be the better defense. Lean on Jacksonville there. All right. So moving on here. Let's see. What else do we have here? Does Atlanta cover again against the Bengals? All right, let's talk about that game. Hey, Sports Guru, good to see you. By the way, be sure to like this video if you're enjoying the content. Just give it a like button as well. So, I'm a big fan of my Falcons. Falcons are 3-3. Bengals are 3-3. It's interesting because the Falcons did beat the Browns, right? And obviously the Bengals are well aware of that. Atlanta comes off a 28-14. Atlanta's been a covering machine. They've covered 6 in a row. Obviously, they've covered every game this season. And now they find themselves as a 6.5-point dog. You have the Bengals here who beat New Orleans by 4. But they didn't play well that game. They had to, a 9-3 fourth quarter. They had to get it done. Lost to Baltimore on the road. Beat Miami. Beat Miami. Beat the Jets, who are actually a very good team, by 15. Lost to Dallas in a game that they never should have lost, and lost to Pittsburgh in a game that they never should have lost. So both these teams are 3-3. But to be quite honest with you, I don't know if Atlanta is. I'm a huge Falcons fan, but I think the Falcons are in for a letdown here. I think the Falcons, they've continued to play well, but I want you to know that the last time they were such big dogs was against Tampa Bay and the Rams, and they covered as 10.5. But I think the Bengals are not going to overlook the Falcons here, okay? And I think the Falcons are expected to do well. They'd only be a 4.5 point dog, not a 6.5 point dog. And I like Cincinnati here minus the points just because they played so bad against last week against the Saints, and I think they bounced back here. I mean, they needed a miracle fourth quarter comeback, so I actually like the Bengals this week. Moving on here, Andrew, Oregon, UCLA, please. Yeah, Andrew, my lean there is on Oregon. Sports Guru Lewis. Hey, how's it, IC? How about Jacksonville, the Giants? Yeah, I lean on Jacksonville that game. Gave the analysis earlier as well. Again, all these my premium selections can entirely change tomorrow just based on what's going on today and tomorrow. But this is where I stand right now. Sports Guru's asking about the Ravens and the Browns. David, I see you. The Lakers Clippers game. We'll talk about that next. So the Ravens Browns. Let's see here. Yeah, the Ravens come into this game as a 6.5 point favorite over the Browns, 2-4 and 3-3 team. Now these are the games that the funny thing the Browns cover, right? I mean, they cover when you least expect them to cover. They beat the Ravens 24-22 last year. Cleveland comes off an embarrassing 15-38 loss to New England. And that was at home too. They just come off that 2-point loss to the Chargers, 3-point loss to the Falcons. They've lost 3 in a row. You have the Ravens here. You have the Bucks on the horizon with Tom Brady on the horizon, coming off a 4-point loss to the Giants. They beat the Bengals by 2. They lost to Buffalo by 3. They beat New England on the road by 11, to their credit. They lost to Miami by 4. They beat the Jets. They played definitely the tougher schedule. So it looks like the Ravens would make sense according to all things. I just hate taking it. But then again, you have a Browns team that comes off the worst loss of the year, right? And they've gone over the last 2 times, 43 and 46 points. But then you have a Ravens team that's gone under the last 3 points. So where does this game fall given all of that? I think where it falls is that this game, I want you to notice a total of 45.5. I think there's a lot of frustration here. I think you have 2 teams that are super frustrated, and I think they're going to get out their frustrations. And I like the over between Cleveland and Baltimore. No holds bar. I think Baltimore's going to put up a ton of points. I think Cleveland's frustrated with the 15 points they gave up. And I don't think this is going to be a classic, helmet smashing defensive type of game. I think this is going to be a very much of an offensive game, and I think it's going to be high scoring. And I like the over between these 2 teams. David, let's talk about that Clippers Lakers game now. So as far as the Clippers, and by the way, nice 6-unit NBA premium selection winner, as we gave you the Pelicans plus the 3, and they ended up winning by 22 points over the Nets. 2-0 start plus 1,200 for the NBA. We won back-to-back 6-unit selections. We also gave you a nice free pick winner on the Wizards as well. As far as the Clippers Lakers tomorrow, the way I stand here on this game is I like the under in this game. Typically, when these 2 teams meet, remember Clippers haven't laced them up yet, but the Lakers have. Clippers won 132-111 last time. They beat this team by 21 points. And if you go further back, the Clippers have actually covered back-to-back games. Lakers, of course, come off of a 109-123 loss against Golden State. But if you look at it, they had given up 32 points in the fourth quarter. There was like 70 points scored in the fourth quarter. I don't see that happening here. I think the Lakers kind of bottle up on defense pretty well in this game, especially after giving up 32 points in the fourth quarter. I think they play much better on the defensive side of the ball. And I think the Clippers typically, this game probably has favored and under rolled over it. And the fact that the Clippers are favored by 5.5 points is kind of embarrassing to the Lakers at home too. So my current lean right now, but I can't go against the Lakers as they come off a loss. So my current lean right now is a small lean on the under. The Lakers can play quality defense. It's the Lakers home opener as well. The Lakers did hold Golden State, to 25 points in the first quarter, and then they gave up 34, 32, 32. I think they'll step up here on the defense side. Remember, that game was listed at 224.5 and it went over. And this one is listed at 224. And I think this one probably goes under. So I like the Lakers and Clippers under the posted total for your 6th game that we talked about. Moving on here. What else do we got here? Aren't the Saints sitting out a lot of players? So the Saints are sitting out some players. But at the end of the day, fully don't trust Arizona, and I've always believed when key players sit out, what happens is games have a tendency to go towards that team. Um, the total jumped down quickly too, but I still small lean on the Saints. In fact, I kind of lean on the over, if anything else, especially with them sitting out a couple players. I lean on the Saints and I lean on the over, but I think there's other games to look at in this week, including Jacksonville, including Cincinnati, including even Oregon, including Cleveland, Baltimore over. Or so I think those are the games that you might want to look at. I personally am probably staying away from the New Orleans Arizona game, though. If I give a free play tomorrow, I'm probably going to give it on the over. So we'll see what happens. Indian Cowboy, do you like Mississippi State and Kentucky this week? Hey, Leroy, good to see you. Yeah, let's talk about that. So I'll start with Kentucky first. Let me pull that up here. Not pulling up for me. Give me 1 second here. I don't think Kentucky is playing. You mean Western Kentucky, maybe? I could be wrong. I don't see Kentucky. I could be entirely wrong. Hold on 1 second. I think Kentucky's next game is, October 29th against Tennessee. We'll talk about that game as it gets closer. But as far as your thoughts on Mississippi State, so they're playing against Alabama. Alabama comes off a loss. Alabama's going to be super pissed off coming in. Mississippi State is 5-2, of course. Alabama beat this team 49-9 last year. Mississippi State comes off of a 17-27 loss to Kentucky. They're a 3.5-point chalk. Probably looking forward to this game, but they did kill Texas A&M and Arkansas. So Mississippi State has arrived for what it's worth, and they lost to LSU 16-31. In the opener, but they've certainly bounced back since then. Alabama, of course, comes off a 49-52 loss. Alabama struggled against Texas A&M as well. They did destroy Arkansas as well. They beat Vanderbilt pretty easily. Alabama's totals have been lately all over the place, usually around the 60-point mark. And then Texas A&M was one exception where they put it at 48. What you need to look for is the total listed on this game. That could give you a hint. And this game is listed at 62, which tells you everything you need to know about Alabama's frustration. And if Mississippi State, how will they do? Their totals are usually 52, 45, 55, 50. So the fact that this total is so high is interesting. But I mean, Alabama, they're going to be furious with their defensive effort in their last game. But at the same time, Mississippi State is a good team, and they come off a loss, and people are taking the 3 touchdowns here with this team. This is a very, very difficult game. But I think the difference for this game is the fact that if Mississippi State had their issues against Kentucky, only scoring 17 points, Alabama is going to be super ticked off in this game. I think this game has sort of a 38 to 18 vibe, I thought. But I looked at it a little bit closer, and I feel like Alabama will want to run up the score a little bit here, especially given the fact that Mississippi State is the 24th ranked team in the country. So putting them on the pedestal, because they're going to be a good team that's going to have a lot of good wins later on. So if they're able to win by a wide margin, it's going to help. But I don't see Alabama calling off the dogs here. I can see a 49-14 type of game. I lean on Alabama this week over Mississippi State. Moving on here. Let's see, what else do we have here? David, take the Clippers. Lakers suck. Yeah, they do. I actually lean on the Clippers, and I lean on the under in that game. Hey, Andrew, Steelers and the Dolphins. So in the Steelers game, let's talk about that game here. Yeah. So this is we're probably going to wrap it up after here because we've talked about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This will be our 8th game. We try to keep this to 20 minutes for the live show for the week, but a lot of good leans here for you. It's Sunday Night Football. The Dolphins are favored by 7. Tua looks like he's going to come back. Totals are 44.5. You have them as a solid touchdown favorite. These two teams obviously don't get to see primetime as much these days. Pittsburgh miraculously beat Tampa Bay 20-18. They scored 3 against Buffalo, 20 against the Jets, 17 against Cleveland, 14 against the Patriots. But Mitchell Trubisky, 193 yards, 77 passing yards. Um, somehow they got it done. It's quite incredible. They had two quarterbacks that basically one threw for 144, the other one threw for 67. They each threw for a touchdown. Then you have Miami, who's not very good without Tua, are they? 15-27 lost to the Bengals, 17-40 lost to the Jets, and 16-24 lost to the Vikings. Miami had Bridgewater, who threw for 329, but two TDs and two interceptions. And Minnesota had Cousins, who threw for 175 and two touchdowns. Um, but Miami can pass the ball. That's not the issue. The issue is that they, decision making and stuff. If Tua plays, I like Miami here. I actually like the over too. I think the Dolphins defense has been suspect like crazy, giving up 27 to Cincinnati, 40 to the Jets, and 24 to the Vikings. And I think some of that has to do with the field position. But I think the smart thing here is take the over in general. I do lean on Miami more, but I don't know how the situation is going to turn out as far as a quarterback. But if Bridgewater or Tua plays, I like the over between Pittsburgh and Miami for this week. That's what we have for you guys. Hope you guys do well. Hope this was useful to you. This has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games. Let's see. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it, man. Lewis, I'll hit up the 49ers Chiefs game quickly. Commanders upset the Packers. Yankees, Houston, I'll talk about that tomorrow. Detroit, Dallas, Tampa Bay, Carolina, and then a bunch of spam. Let's see. Okay, there you go. So yeah, the final lean, I can tell you, I think a couple of people asked about. The Packers and Washington game. Yeah, I think in that game, I think Washington is certainly a live dog, especially given the struggles of the Packers this year. I think you can look at an over possibly, and you can look at Washington there. And I think I think the Kansas City game, right? Did someone ask for the Kansas City game? I think the Kansas City game, you can look at a possible over. I think if there's any game that's going to be, actually, no, I take it back. Kansas City, I have marked as a possible under in that game. So keep that in mind. No. Hold on. My notes say San Francisco should be an active dog and the game should go over. I take it back. I like the over between those two teams in that game. But I think the better leans are probably the Saints, Jaguars, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Baltimore over, Pittsburgh, Miami over, Alabama, and even Oregon in college football. That is your video. Hope you guys are doing great. Hey, Dave, good to see you. I see college football lock of the week Saturday any game. Hey, Kings D, good to see you. I wouldn't say anything is a lock. Thank you for the donation there. I wouldn't say anything is a lock, but I would definitely take a look at Oregon, right, against UCLA. But I think my favorite college football right now is probably Alabama to kill Mississippi State. So that's something that you can look forward to. But I think the better lock, so to speak, is you can look at NFL. My NFL card comes out tomorrow. I like Jacksonville to shock the Giants big time. I like them to win big. So that's something you can look at. I think my Falcons are in trouble against the Bengals, frankly. I think they're going to have a huge letdown. So I would look, frankly, at I would take a close look at Jacksonville. I would take a close look at the Bengals. And I would take a close look at Pittsburgh, Miami over for what it's worth. Okay. Hey, Kings D, good to see you. James, good to see you. Sports Group, good to see you. We're already running a little over here. Let me see. You're asking about Texas. So as it relates to Texas, they're playing. Hold on 1 second here. Let me try to pull that game up. Yeah, so they're playing Oklahoma State and they're favored as a 6.5 point chalk. It's a 5-2 team versus a 5-1 team. Not a lot of people back in Texas here. Oklahoma State beat this team last year. Texas played like garbage against Iowa State. That's because Texas was not interested in playing that game at all. And I know they look really bad against Iowa State, but let me tell you something. They're going to look a lot better against Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State comes off of a loss against TCU as a 5-point dog. They beat Texas Tech by 10. They beat Baylor by 11. They look pretty good. Gundy's a great coach. But, Texas beat West Virginia by 18. Okay. And this is the worst game that they played all year, frankly. I mean, they lost to Texas Tech. But when they want to try and care, they can try and care. And I like Texas this week. I think Texas gets it done frankly. Texas pisses me off. Yeah. But yeah, there you go. Hope you guys are doing well, and hope you guys enjoy the content. 25 minutes. There you go. And be sure to jump on the football card this week. For NBA, we're now 2-0 to start the season. Join YouTube Premium. A lot of great content there. If you enjoyed the content, be sure to give it a like. I'll see you guys in the morning. Take care.